Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I've got a bunch of stuff for you in this video, guys, so buckle up. Number one, the first thing that I'm going to be getting to is I've seen some questions going around the Twitter sphere. It's not like people are panicking, but people are curious because there's a piece out today talking about SWIFT transactions occurring in 13 seconds. People are like, what does that mean for Ripple? How is it so fast? This or that. And I'm going to explain everything on that topic for you. Also, Stefan Thomas, I'm just going to have to share the tweet with you. I don't even know how to properly tease this in the beginning part of the video here, but he was talking about a collaboration with a whole bunch of other entities that are building on top of the XRP ledger, so I'll share that with you in this video. Wietse Wind had a big announcement for you. It's starting an actual foundation which is going to benefit the XRP ecosystem at large, and it has to do with utilizing XRP for payments, not just behind the scenes in the plumbing, as is the case as Ripple intends to using it for cross-border, envisions using it for cross-border payments. Also, this is going to be a fun piece. I got to share this with you. A CNBC host blocked an XRP community member on Twitter after mentioning XRP in a tweet. And I just thought I'd highlight it just for the fun of it. I'll show you who I'm talking about. He was in my last video. Okay, it's kind of ridiculous, but that actually happened. So I just want to be aware of it. So because this guy talks about crypto, he is pro Bitcoin, this and that, but I didn't know he was anti-XRP until this. At least I'm assuming he is based on that. Also, I want to talk a little bit about privacy coins. There is a Twitter user that asked, it was Galgatron, about privacy coins, and that actually stemmed off from something else. But the question came up, okay, what about privacy coins like Monero, and what as it pertains to regulation, are they going to have staying power? And I talked about them somewhat recently. I want to flesh out some of my thoughts on this and where that's actually going. So that'll be towards the tail end of the video. And then I'm going to wrap things up by talking about the US dollar being used for money laundering. Got a little fun tweet from Anthony Pompliano on that particular one. All right. But before we get going here, if you would please delicately tap that like button and go ahead and subscribe. Subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel. Do yourself a favor. Treat yourself today by subscribing if you're a fan of Ripple and XRP. All right, let's get into the content here. So this is from thinextra.com, and this is what has people concerned. What does this actually mean? What is going on here? The title of this piece: SWIFT connects with Singapore's fast to cross-border payment times. So let me read a chunk of this, and then I'm going to get into explaining exactly what this is and exactly what it means. All right. Banking cooperative SWIFT is touting the success of its integration with Singapore's domestic instant payment service, slashing the time taken to process inbound cross-border message transfers to as little as 13 seconds. The trial run, which connected SWIFT GPI Instant into Singapore's Fast and Secure Transfers Network, abbreviated FAST, involved 17 banks across 7 countries. In total, 11 banks initiated cross-border payments into Singapore, and 6 banks in Singapore processed the payments domestically via the FAST system. Payments between all continents settled with 25 seconds. They meant within, I'm sure that's a typo on their part. Within 25 seconds, says SWIFT, the fastest in just 13 seconds. The pilot comes on the back of a 2018 test with a group of banks and Australia's new payments platform, NPP, in which payments between Australia and China took just 18 seconds. And ahead of an upcoming test with banks and the target instant payments settlement tips in Europe. I'm sorry, my dog is like chewing up. I just don't want to chew I'm so sorry. I'm not going to have time to edit this out. My dog is chewing a rawhide on the couch next to me, and I have this little blanket. It's the cutest little blanket. It's got little paw prints on it, but like they're stitched into it. And she likes to move the blanket, and I was afraid she was going to chew the cushion, but now I had to explain all that to you. Otherwise, there's a weird gap. You'd be like, why is Moon Lambo not talking? Anyway, back to the piece here, though. So anyway, SWIFT's head of banking, Henry Newman, says additional tests are planned in other markets with instant payment systems ahead of the planned global launch of GPI Instant later this year. SWIFT whoever wrote this can't write. SWIFT envisages, they mean envisions. All right, SWIFT envisions that cross-border payments will become as convenient as domestic transactions, he says. The successful testing across multiple corridors between Europe and North America to Asia-Pacific confirms the important role that GPI Instant will play in making that bold vision a reality. Okay. So, what is actually going on here? What all this is? It's just a further integration of GPI into their network. And so, let me say this: when you see fast transactions like this on Swift, and you're like, okay, well, then what's the purpose of Ripple? Because they're positioning XRP to be used as a bridge currency, and XRP transacts in roughly 3 to 5 seconds, whatever it is. So, how is this possible? What's the deal? Why would you need Ripple if this is happening? Well, understand it as it pertains to payments corridors. There is a different level of friction depending on how many intermediaries there are. So, with the correspondent banking system being a chain of bilateral banking agreements, especially in particular as it pertains to settlement, because you got Nostro accounts all over the world. If you have the banking arrangements, you actually have banking relationships with banks in other countries. I mean, let's pick an easy one. Let's say that they're two bankers in different countries. Let's say the United States and just say the UK. It doesn't matter. You pick any country. It doesn't matter. If you have Nostro accounts immediately in there, as it pertains to GPI, what we're talking about, this is the messaging layer. Swift and their system, even with GPI, that has nothing to do with settlement. All that is a messaging layer. That's the payments part of this. That's the messaging back and forth. Hey, we're doing this transaction. You still have to source the liquidity from elsewhere. So this is purely the messaging portion. Now, even if they were including settlement in this 13 seconds, which it doesn't explicitly state that they are, but even if they were including that, that would just be because that would be a corridor in question where there's not much friction. If you're just making one hop from, like I said, just pick your two countries. It doesn't matter if you've got Nostro in each account. The money's there. You can finalize that transaction really quickly. But there are so many payments going around the world where it's just not that simple. And the only way to solve that is by having a trustless system, by utilizing a cryptocurrency. And that's why this problem, Swift's been around since whatever it was, I can't remember if it was the late 60s or early 70s, whatever it was, that's how long Swift's been around. The reason humans haven't come up with a solution to that is because technologically there was no solution prior to blockchain technology. There wasn't. And that's what's so neat about this whole thing. You need to use a digital asset that is decentralized, because that takes trust out of the whole system. As it pertains to settlement, that is the part that is key. And that's not what Swift does. Swift does not have a solution for liquidity. It doesn't have a solution for all the problem of just having dormant capital littered all over the world in the form of Nostro accounts. That's not what this is doing. So even if they can cite these instances, because fine, Swift, yeah, they feel the heat. There's competition from Ripple, and even if they've improved certain corridors to this degree where the messaging is this fast or whatever it is, even if it magically included the settlement, I don't care. The point is that it's not a global solution. It isn't. Here's the thing: if you're not using a decentralized cryptocurrency to solve for the settlement layer, the settlement portion of this, you're not solving a global problem. You're absolutely not. That's where the friction lies. Because just understand that in terms of correspondent banking, it's just, again, that bilateral chain of banking relationships that makes all of the monetary movements possible in the first place. So what is this? This is nothing new. This is just an announcement, and it has to do with Swift's GPI, which I've talked about on this channel, and it is not something that will solve a global problem. It just isn't. It's a patch on their old technology, and that's pretty much it. So I hope that helped cleared up if anybody had any concerns or was wondering, well, how is it possible for the 13-second transaction? Well, that's again just a messaging layer. That's it. So not a problem. On to the next piece here. Let's see. Oh, this is from Stefan Thomas. He's the former Ripple CTO, and he is the founder of Coil, streaming money in real time, basically, right? And so he tweeted this out, and I read this and I was like, whoa, you guys got to check this out. He writes, "It's crazy to think how many companies were involved to make this possible. Puma Browser had to make the browser, Enclave Games had to make the game, Coil had to make the subscription, XRP Tipbot had to make the wallet, StrataLabs.io had to make the backend, not even counting the XRP ledger. Open networks are amazing." So I was like, okay, what is this tweet about? And so this was his comment on a retweet of this from somebody named Desigan Chenia. I'm sure I butchered that name. Sorry, man. But he tweeted this out, and he wrote, "Slick update by @HTML5cat with @Puma Browser. It's now built on top of iOS Firefox, has Coil sign-in, and web monetization support built in. And here I am streaming monies in real time to @end3r on one of his Enclave games, Magic. And so I'd never heard of this game, but it doesn't matter. So the point is they made a game, and you can do all of that thanks to this new technology. And that is some pretty snazzy stuff, so I thought I'd just highlight that real quick because it's just a cool little piece to share with you. All right, next. This is from Weetse Wind. This is pretty badass here. So he tweeted this out. I have really exciting news. And then @Mr_HVD @Tom Custer and I worked on something really cool regarding the XRP Community Fund. And then he writes, drum roll. So, drum roll. All right. The XRP Community Fund will soon be an official foundation registered in the Netherlands. Okay, very cool. Now check this out, though. It gets even more neat. The mandatory roles will be fulfilled by Tom Custer and @Mr_HVD and by me. And the bounties will be signed off, XRP Ledger multi-signed, of course, by some of our trusted prominent community members. I'll announce them in a few weeks. Very neat stuff. And check out this out. He goes further, though. Here's another tweet on it. The official purpose of the foundation will be supporting the development of the XRP ecosystem and the use of XRP for payments. Yes, indeed. Now that is fantastic. So the way I read that, since he specifically said XRP for payments, I'm assuming that means closer to being in line to a peer-to-peer cashless system. So that's my guess basically on this. So, of course, there would need to be software built on top of the XRP ledger to allow the easy facilitation of that, basically. And that's what I'm guessing. I haven't seen anything additional on this. If this is the first time you heard it, well, hey, same for me too. So as I learn more on this, I'll be happy to share more with you too. Anyway, all right. Oh, and he wrote this too. Actually, one more piece on this. I did want to share this with you. He wrote, fun fact: the foundation will keep accounts in XRP. So Euro will be the foreign currency in our books. I thought that was kind of funny anyway. All right, check this out. This is about XRP Yoda, valuable XRP community member. We follow each other on Twitter. I read his stuff on Twitter all the time. He's always posting good stuff. And so anyway, he put this innocent tweet out, and it was in response to this. It was here we go. So this from Squawk Box. I actually covered this piece in my last video. And it was about Steve Mnuchin here. He's the United States Secretary of Treasury. And he was talking about how, as it pertains to cryptocurrencies, they don't want to squander or ruin, whatever word he used, financial innovation, especially when it comes to moving money around the world, this or that. And I got to admit that when he said that, I thought, oh, that sounds exactly like XRP. It doesn't matter whether or not he was referencing it. I'm not trying to imply that he was referencing it. It's just that is what I thought of. And so XRP Yoda responded to this particular tweet, and he wrote, so Steve is basically talking about XRP, but he can't say it because of NDAs, so I said it for him. So that'd be non-disclosure agreements, I'm sure. And so the guy interviewing Steve Mnuchin, I think his name's Joe Kernel. Does that sound right? He's down here. Kernel. Joe Kernan, whatever. Joe Kernan. So anyway, this guy who, again, he was in my last video. If you haven't seen, he'll look familiar if you saw my last video. He blocked XRP Yoda for that tweet. And so XRP Yoda wrote, unbelievable. You joking me? This is a very sad, pathetic move. Yeah, I was surprised to see that. So I'm going to remember that because that makes me think, because there's nothing unreasonable about what XRP Yoda tweeted out there. That makes me think that this guy may be either a Bitcoin maximalist or just at a minimum anti-XRP. So just take that for what it's worth. That's, CNBC host just blocking an XRP community member on Twitter for the heck of it. That's something. So that is what it is. I just thought I'd share it with you, and I'm going to keep that in mind because this Joe guy, since he talks a lot about cryptocurrency, he keeps popping up. So he's probably going to be featured on my channel with some amount of regularity. So let's just be aware of that. That's all I'm saying. That's it. All right, check this out. So a question was posed by somebody named CryptoLife on Twitter. The handle is @altspring5, and posed this question: what is Libra doing that XRP can't? Genuine question. And Galvatron happened to respond to this, and he wrote, XRP liquidity is low, but Libra can get lots of liquidity very quickly. Also, stablecoins have the allure that volatile crypto doesn't. Right? And so CryptoLife responded, so really just liquidity then, because the 3-second settlement isn't really a risk. And then Galvatron responded, no, volatility matters because they can hold stable coins to be able to step up resourcing liquidity for each payment. Volatile assets make holding risky, so they are forced through the sourcing step. So all this is true. There are a couple points that I wanted to make on this, though. So on the first point, XRP liquidity is low, but Libra can get lots of liquidity very quickly. So I wanted to think through, just from an analytical perspective, what does that actually mean? What does that look like? Because Galgotron's hitting the nail on the head here. What we're talking about with Libra specifically is that's a stable coin. So eventually... essentially what they're doing is, when they create, assuming they actually create this thing, because at least it's not released, I don't know if they even have a test version of it or something like that, or in beta, whatever, but if they create Libra, it's so you can create the blockchain, okay, all well and good, but in terms of the value, it's not going to have a market value. It's not going to be traded on exchanges. There's a basket of fiat currencies actually backing it, so it'll be worth whatever the whole Libra Foundation, or if that's what it's called, I can't remember now, whatever they say it's worth. It'll be based on the value of the underlying fiat currencies. And so as soon as it's printed and they say that it's got value, it just magically has value, and that's what makes it technically a liability from my perspective. But anyway, as a result of it, depending on the entities that are backing it, the only limit to how much it can be worth is how much money the entities that are backing Libra have collectively. That's pretty much it. Because that's assuming that they're literally backing it with the actual value that they have. If they do something like Tether, for example, I don't know if you guys know this, but last I heard, and it was a few months ago, only about 74% of Tether was actually backed by fiat currency. And just in case you didn't know that, let that sink in for a second. If that doesn't scare you, then I don't know what to do. Like, that's pretty ridiculous to me. But as far as this goes, so that solves the liquidity problem instantly, because you're just printing a bunch of it. So if you got more than whatever XRP's market cap is, you got more than that in terms of your fiat currencies, then go ahead. You can actually just print it, and there you go. Voila, liquidity, and it's stable. It's only stable insofar as the fiats behind it are stable, because it's basically like using fiat currency. It's just technologically different because it's on a blockchain. That's pretty much it. But fundamentally, again, you still have to have that fiat currency exactly exists, and that's why when people I don't want to get too much into it because I talked about it before, but when people say, there's some people have the point of view that that Libra is competing specifically against a fiat currency like the United States dollar, I'm like, no, it's backed by it. You need the dollar to exist for it to happen. I'm sorry, you're wrong. It's not competing with fiat currencies. That is incorrect. But anyway, on the issue of liquidity, absolutely, you've got that, and then there's a lack of volatility. Now, so on the second point here, volatility, how much does that actually matter? Well, it's going to matter to some people, and so Galgatron is right on this. But you might ask, okay, so say if you're going to engage in any capacity, if you're going to run a business in the world of cryptocurrency, you better have faith that the assets are going to be around for. Because, for example, how many cryptocurrency coins do exchanges hold? Because the answer is a ton. I don't know numerically what that is, but if you thought that was all going to go to zero and the whole economy were going to collapse, then you probably better not be running an exchange. And for the case of XRP specifically, thankfully, of course, there are exchanges that have confidence to hold XRP, and people can buy and sell it. All this good stuff. You can buy it at market rate, whatever, sell it at market rate. And those pools, because these exchanges exist, you have actual liquidity there, and that's super duper. But if your idea is to make money from holding something, you better hope that the volatility goes in the direction that you want it to go. So depending on your place within the market, this could be viewed as something that's too scary or not necessarily that big of a deal. If you're a market maker, for example, I've cited a number of times that your place within the XRP, XRabbit ecosystem can be to purchase XRPs, and you're taking it out of the ecosystem, but you're not holding it to make a profit. You're buying it, and then you're selling it, and then you buy it again so that you can sell it again, and then it just keeps going on and on and on. You make money on the fees associated with that because you're connecting corridors, and so that's what's actually happening there. So anyway, that's my views on that. I just thought I'd share it with you because I found the question to be kind of interesting, just the topic of liquidity and volatility on this as stated here. Now, this one I find interesting as well. Let me read through this here. This isn't a particularly long thread, but I do want to share this with you here. And so the original tweet was from Squawkbox. Man, I got a lot of CNBC stuff today here. But anyway, there's a quote that says, "I think there's no capacity to kill Bitcoin." And I talked about that a bit yesterday, so I'm not going to delve into that too much, but that's where the topic starts anyway. So Galgatron wrote, in response to that, look at the map in this link and try and tell me that the U.S. banning Bitcoin means it will be accepted everywhere else in the world. The U.S. banning Bitcoin will destroy its market value, and no local Bitcoins will change that. And then somebody named XRP Newbie responded, interesting. It may slow down the progress, but I truly don't understand how it can halt the long term. If the U.S. banned the internet back in the day, does that mean none of us would be here to discuss the topic? And Galgatron responds, that's apples to oranges. A better comparison would be eBay versus a website for selling narcotics. Regulation will shape what's acceptable, not eliminate the concept. And so here's where it gets to the part where I want to talk about it. Okay, what was just discussed there that is interesting, but I talked about it very recently, so I don't want to get into it again on this video. But check out the next piece here, because I do want to comment on this. And so XRP Newbie responded, because they just were talking about regulation. Would that mean an end to a coin like Monero? Now, Monero is a privacy coin, of course, and so I've said a little bit about this recently. And Galgatron responded, death. So he's saying death to Monero because it is a privacy coin based on regulation. And he continues. Anybody that believes privacy coins will be allowed to proliferate in a heavily regulated future crypto world is clueless. And so here's the Galgatron has a very solid point here. So let me tell you what I previously stated in a recent video, and I want to expand upon it a little bit. What I said about privacy coins is that there can be legitimate reasons that you want to hide transactions, just legit parties that just don't want it to be known publicly what is happening, but you also want to have the benefits of utilizing cryptocurrency for whatever reason. The problem is, of course, you can use privacy coins for many illicit activities, and frankly, I've been afraid of this from like inside of learning about privacy coins. After being in crypto for just a few weeks, I was like, I don't know how these things are going to live. That was just my initial visceral reaction to all of this. And so my whole thing was, what I said in a recent video essentially was, if you can regulate it in such a way that legitimate parties can do that, can actually take advantage of this and somehow be approved, then the privacy feature is valuable, and there should, if there's a way to make that happen, make it happen. And so I want to expand upon this a little bit, because I just don't think that you're going to see a world where privacy coins are just unregulated forever. Anybody just can use them, because that's going to lead to all sorts of problems. I just don't see that happening. I really, really, really don't. If I were running a privacy coin or building on top of it, I would be very terrified. I definitely really would. And so there are a couple things here. So you might think, okay, what if you regulate privacy coins so that only those who are approved to take advantage of the privacy features of it can engage with this? And then I thought, well, on the surface that sounds all hunky-dory, but would that actually work? Probably not, because then all the liquidity would drive. Because there are probably all the people that want to use Monero and other privacy coins, how many of them are using it for illicit purposes, and how many of them would actually be approved? Because also, you can imagine, as far as I'm not going to get into a bunch of hypotheticals of why you'd want the privacy, but just imagine that, of course, conceptually, we understand there can be business transactions on which, of course, you maybe want the benefits that come along with using a cryptocurrency, but you want the privacy too. So just conceptually, that's all you need to understand for this. But I don't see I just don't see how you get over the problem of just if it's unregulated, it's the issue of liquidity. And then if there's no liquidity there, and then how are the people that could use it legitimately even going to be able to use it? So then you might think, okay, well, maybe you could have the privacy feature maybe through like a stable coin or something like that. And the thing about that is it's interesting, because as far as stable coins go, you're talking about a certain level of centralization there. And if they're being traded on a bunch of exchanges, there can be a certain level of interoperability, but most stable coins typically are not. And so it just makes me think maybe stuff like that would only work within closed networks, walled gardens. And if that's the case, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's sufficient enough. It just depends on how many legitimate private transactions would need to actually take place. And so that kind of depends. But as it pertains to XRP, think about this. Part of the reason that... Actually, I don't even want to go that direction. Let me just say this. As far as XRP goes, the ledger is public. You can see all the transactions. But once the money, given that banks don't have to hold XRP in order to take advantage of it, when the transaction is converted from an exchange to a bank, once that happens, there's AML and KYC on both ends of the transaction, so that's taken care of there. So like XRP itself, it doesn't it doesn't matter that that's public. So my point is, if you're moving money to conduct a business transaction with and you're utilizing what should be the new norm in the future as far as utilizing that XRP and XRapid for cross-border payments, if you want to do that, you've still got the privacy on one end and the other, and so there is that also. So I just kind of wanted to flesh out. These are a few things that have been popping in my head lately, and seeing this thread here made me think about that. I'll read the rest of this now, though, because it is interesting. So somebody named Not the Real Warren De Martini responded, or more valuable, one or the other. Galvatron responded, someone sends you a Monero coin, what do you do with it? And that's assuming that it's regulated out of existence, basically. So it's made to be illegal. And so Galvatron says, okay, so it's illegal. Someone sends you a Monero coin, what do you do with it? And then this person responded, what is their name? Lanthanide responded, this feels like a trick question, which I appreciate that. I'm going to hit like on that, actually, because I think that's good. That did make me chuckle the first time I read it. And XRP newbie responded, yeah, I'm thinking the same. The obvious answer is to sell it for XRP, but I'm sure there is something I'm not considering. And Galvatron responded, if Monero is banned, where do you sell it for XRP? Because normally you go to an exchange, right? And then XRP newbie responds, what's banned in one country may not necessarily be banned in another, though, is it? Or would the cross-border crypto realm be set to a different set of united laws once regulated? Well, the answer to that's no, but I'll just read Galvatron's response. This is my point. You can either operate within the law or outside of it. You cannot mix the two, as in laundering your Monero for clean XRP. They'll put it in the checks and balances for that, just like they do with fiat. Exactly. So I think Galvatron's spot on everything he just said. I just want to take it as an opportunity to expand upon my personal thoughts on it anyway. And check this out. So remember, if you saw my last video, I was talking about how Steve Mnuchin, in his interview with Joe Kernan, I keep wanting to call him Colonel now, he said that, he essentially said, I'm paraphrasing here, but he was just denying that money laundering is a problem via the United States dollar. You're going to have to just see the video clip for himself. I was just like, oh my God, how do you believe what you're saying here? Like, how can you possibly believe this? And so this is a nice tweet. It's probably because of what that guy said. If not, it's just really timely. But Anthony Pompliano tweeted this out here. There's $2 trillion of United States dollars laundered last year. That is more than 6.5 times the entire crypto market cap. Well stated, Anthony Pompliano. Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, this is absurd. How can Steve Mnuchin actually believe any of what he's saying there? It's absolutely absurd. So I had to share that with you there. Do not use Bitcoin to conduct your illicit activities. Don't use the United States. Just don't do illicit activities. Like, don't engage in the illicit activities. But if you wanted to, the way to get away with it is use paper money, right? Okay? Come on, this is common sense here. This is not difficult stuff. So, anyway, that's all I got for you in this video. And thanks for putting up with me as I spoke about my dog chewing on her rawhide. She's almost finished the darn thing. And now I'm eyeing her right now, and she's wondering if I'm going to take it from her. She gets really protective, and she probably thinks I'm going to... Oh, can you hear her growling? It's okay, people. I'm not taking your rawhide. Right. Anyway, that's it for the video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!